Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Jobs End-to-End webinar. My name's Jaclyn, and I'm part of the support team. You may have seen me in support tickets, and I'm also a member of the development team. So my role at Formitize is basically to help you guys get the best out of it when you have technical issues, and also to help develop awesome features that you guys want. So a little bit about me. My past role was as an office manager in a pest control company. So that's where I came from, and we were using Formitize. And one of the things that I really love about Formitize is it literally revolutionized the way that we were doing our work. So it took away a lot of the administrative paperwork that we found quite overwhelming at times. And our technicians loved it because they were able to complete their paperwork on the job rather than coming back to the office and doing it. And I also didn't have to chase them up for paperwork, and I could see how the day was progressing based on where their jobs were at. We were also able to download job forms prior to going out to the jobs, which was absolutely key working in a business in a rural area. And as you know, not great reception out there, and being able to do those things without having great reception was such a key part of how our business runs, and absolutely made the difference and was something that we didn't find anywhere else. So I'm now part of the Formitize team, and I'm really excited to show you the jobs process that changed everything for us in my past role, and share some of the tips and tricks that I learned along the way. So let's get started. Okay, so here we have the scheduler with a little demonstration of the app. So we're going to be using both the portal and the app today in the demonstration. So the first thing that we want to have a look at is how you create a job. So there are a couple of different ways that you can create a job, and we'll go through the portal ones first. So you're probably quite familiar with the dashboard. So when you're creating jobs, you've got a few different options. You could go through the jobs menu, and you can click start a new job here, and that will bring up the form. Or you can go into a client. So if we go through the contacts menu, and we open one of them up, and down here you've got the activity section, and this is really useful for quickly finding things that are related to a particular client. So on this tab we can see all of the client's jobs, and we can also start a new job from this button here. But my personal favorite is actually using the scheduler. So this is a bit of an example. So we've got 3 people on the company in this one, and we've got a few different custom job types with their different colors and their different lengths. And creating a job on scheduler, I just like to click and drag, and that will bring up the job dispatch form. So it's quite easy. Another option that you've got is by going through your CRM invoices and accounts. And if you've got quotes in here, you can also convert them into jobs. So we'll just go back to the scheduler, and we'll go back to this job. So when you're creating a job, there are a few different things to complete. So the first is to select your client, and you can select from an existing client, or you can add a new one in here. And that will be added to your CRM as well. So you don't have to go back to the CRM to add your client and then go and add the job. But we'll just select one from here for today. The next trick is to select a job type if you have them set, or if you don't want to use a job type, that also works. But we'll select job type there. You can choose any additional assignees if you want more than one person to go on the job, and then set the due date here, and the due time, and the time that it should end, and the time that it should complete. And across here you can see a really handy reference of the client's details that you're currently working with. So when we change it over here, it will change over here as well. And you've also got quick buttons here to edit and to go and view that contact properly. And here you can add and modify your invoices, and you can see a list of the forms that are attached to this job. So we'll just start from a very simple example, and I'll just delete this one here. It's going to ask me if I'm sure. There we go. So we'll just add another new job. So if we're creating one for an existing client, we don't want to use a job type this time, but we want to create a recurring job. So here you can set it to be a recurring profile, and that means that you can set a job to remake itself every so often. So say we want it to be every day, sorry. We want it to skip Saturday and Sunday, and we want it to end when there have been 20 jobs made. And we'll create the next job 14 days before the next due date. And that 14 days before next due date means that the job will convert from a placeholder to an actual job 14 days before it's due to be completed. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So here we can also attach any forms. So you can attach web forms, you can attach job forms, or you can attach safety forms. And the difference here is web forms are designed to go to your client prior to the job being completed or after the job being completed. And they are a link that to a form the client can fill out for you and send back to you. So they're not ones that typically your staff will fill out. They're ones that your client will fill out and give responsive like feedback or agreements or that sort of thing. Job forms are the ones that your employees will complete on the job as part of doing that job. And safety forms are job forms that must be completed in order to meet safety requirements. So you can also use the safety first rule, which says safety first forms must be completed before they can access these job forms. So make sure they get them done. And safety forms do not need to be completed before accessing job forms. So they don't need to complete the safety forms first before they can get to the job forms. And that's a matter of how you'd like your process to work out. The other really excellent thing here is the pre-populate on this particular page. So you can have a look at the fields that each form has that is attached to the job. And as you can see, because I've selected a client in this job, it's already put in the information that was relevant to that form in each of these ones. This one doesn't have a client lookup, so it's not on there. And they're just very simple demonstration forms, those ones. You can add attachments to each job. So if you've got maps or other documentation that needs to go with the job for the staff member who's completing it. You've got communications here. So if you had an email that would be sent out when the job was booked, that would be listed here. If you had emails scheduled for 3 days before the due date or 4 days after the due date, or 11 months after job complete as an annual reminder, those will all appear in here. You've also got the job history tab, which shows sort of the history of the job and what actions have occurred on it. So going back to this page, we might go back and change the job type. And I'll also show you when I change the client, as well as changing here, when I go back to my forms, you can see that it's also changed the pre-population information. So that doesn't get locked in until the job is started. So you can always change that information and it'll be reflected in the form. So we'll dispatch that one. And when you dispatch, that sends the job the user that it is assigned to. If you don't have a person that it's assigned to, you can see up here, if I unassign that, it'll go to save. And then when you save a job, it'll go into the unassigned category. So it won't be assigned to a user, but it will still send job communications if you've got them set on the job type. Some other features on this particular page is the notes. So we can add a note and save it. And this all becomes accessible to the person completing the job via the app as well. Okay, so that's creating a job on the portal. It's mostly pretty straightforward. And as you can see, we didn't have an assigned user for that one. So it's gone up into the unassigned. And if I want to just change that, I could just click and drag it down to a user when I need to. So now it's fully assigned and it will send job communications based on those job types as well. So looking at the app, if we look at the jobs, in the job list, the person who's logged in will see only their jobs. That's by design, and that's so that they can see exactly what they need to do when they need to do it. There is a way to see the jobs that are booked across users if you have the permission to do so, and I'll show you that in a minute. So to create a job on the app, we click this plus button, and just like on the portal, we can select a job type or not select a job type if we don't want to, but we'll go with job type 1. We can select a lead to import details from if we wanted to, or we can select a customer. So we'll just select this one here, and that fills in her details there. The forms, we can add a job to the forms. So we'll add these have already been added because we've got a job type set. So that's part of the job type feature. We could also add other forms if we wanted to. We can change the job title. We can add a job number, which might be useful if you use those for reference. We can add or change the note. And we can change things like the delivery location and all of that other information. And we can make it a recurring job as well if we wanted to. So the next step is to see if we've assigned it to someone. There it is, assigned to me. Or I can select one of my users. So we'll assign it there and save it. I don't want to make it recurring, we just want to save it. So that will now appear in our list. And we can also, if we go over here and refresh the scheduler, we can see that that job has appeared here as well. So it's pretty fast in how it transfers the information. So there's a lot of different ways to work with the jobs and create them and configure them the way that you like. It really depends on your particular workflow. And if you've got any questions on how Formitize can best work with your workflow, definitely give us a bell, raise a support ticket, or just reach out and ask. We've always got more ideas on how we can make Formitize work for you better. So to find a job and to edit it, on the scheduler, you can just click them, and they've got an edit job option there. We can just close if we don't want to make any edits. In other areas of the portal, you can go to the View Jobs menu, and we might search for jobs for Margaret. And these are all of her jobs that we've got booked for her. And up here, you can see that we've got active jobs. So by default, these are filtered by anything that's not complete. And you can change these filters to show whatever you would like to show. We've also got the recurring profiles in a separate spot. And these are like the base templates for your recurring jobs. So if you decide that you want a job to not recur every week anymore, you want it to recur every 2 weeks, you change the base template, and that will change the future jobs. We've also got a completed tab. This will show by default all of your jobs that are completed, and a job type templates tab, which shows you all of the job type templates that you've got configured. So I've got 4 of them on this account. And if you ever need to go back to your deleted jobs, you can view them here. And you can restore them, assign them, or confirm them as you need by selecting the checkbox and using the menu down here. And in active jobs, you can select the checkbox and you can delete them here, you can confirm, and you can assign them as well. So you've got those quick actions handy when you need them. On the app, for finding jobs, you can scroll through the job list here and find the one that you're looking for, and these will be out of your jobs that are assigned to you. Alternately, there's the diary. And the diary is a little bit different in that it allows you, if you have permission, to view jobs belonging to other users. So at the moment, I've got it set to a list that is showing my jobs. I could, if I wanted, click this little button up here, which is the little people icon, and I will show jobs for this guy and this one. And when I go back, you can see that it's showing a lot more jobs. And these are all of the jobs assigned to the people that I've selected. Some other job options that you've got here, and I'll just make it back to these just to simplify it a little bit. You've also got this views over here, and you can open this by clicking this little line menu. So we can view it as a day, and that shows what we've got booked for the day. You can view it as a week, and this is very similar to the scheduler views. You can view it as a month, it gives you a nice little calendar, or you can view it as a list, and I quite like the list. You can also show and hide particular days depending on what your preferences are, so you might not work Saturday and Sunday, and you might want the intervals on your your week view, that's these gaps here, to be a little bit smaller or a little bit larger. So you've got those options there. And to get out of it, we just exit the scheduler. So if we want to edit a job, we can do it from either the jobs menu, the jobs page, or from the diary. So if we wanted to edit this, just hold and swipe to the left, and you get this menu here. So we've got edit, accept, reject, reschedule, and archive. In this case, we want to edit. And that will bring up the same page as we were looking at when we were creating the job. So we've got all of these options that we can edit. So if we want to take out the agreement web form, we can do that. We might want to change the priority to urgent, and then we just resave the job. And that will redispatch the job with its new information as well. When you're in the jobs menu, as I said, you don't have access to other people's jobs, which might be something that you need as an administrator. So in that case, you would go to the diary. And we'll just change it back to list view because I like that one. And I don't want to look at my jobs, I want to look at Alan's jobs. So in this case, we just click it, and I've got the option to open, invoice, edit, and complete. So in this case, we want to edit. And again, we're back to this same job creation edit page. And they're all the same options that we were looking at before. So we might change it to a start date of September 4th and save. Except that I should have changed the end date to be after the start date. And it does catch those sorts of issues as well. So if you're trying to create jobs in negative time, it will catch those and let you know before you mess up your scheduling too much. So that is editing jobs. So the next bit is what happens when you need to manage your jobs. So we've gone through the job list actions that you can find for restoring, deleting, and editing all of that. There's a few more options on the actual app that are quite useful. And for those, we'll go back to the jobs menu. And when we looked at this, there's the accept, reject, reschedule, and archive options. So accept is something that your staff can use to indicate that they've seen the job, they've accepted it. It might be a job that isn't necessarily assigned to them, but is in a queue. Some sort of acknowledgement that your staff member has seen the job and that they're ready to do it. Reject is the inverse of that. So they've seen the job, they're not going to do the job, they don't have time to do the job, so they reject it instead. They also have the option to reschedule. So when we click these, they come up with these little buttons just to confirm. You can also get a reason for rejection from your staff member. Reschedule will bring up the option to add a new date and a new time that they recommend, and a reason for reschedule as well. So you get all of that feedback directly from the field without having to chase it up, and that's really, really useful. And the other option is to archive, and that's the same as the delete function. So it will take it away from your active jobs list, and it will make it so that you can restore it if you need to. And other options that you've got on the jobs page, so you can look at all of the jobs that are booked for yourself, all of the ones that you have for today. So this is just showing the ones for today, all of the ones that you have for the week, and any jobs that are in the queued status. So instead of assigning it to a user or assigning it to unassigned, you assign it to a queue. And that makes it available to anyone with permissions to do that job. They can accept that job and complete it. So now if we just refresh the app, so you can see the little syncing bar, that means it's getting new information from the system. And it's always good to let it do what it needs to do as best you can. So I'll give it a second. And we can now see that there's a job in the queue. And here we can accept that job, basically make that job ours and complete it. So the next thing to look at is, say we are a user of the app, we are out on a work day, we're ready to do a job. what's the process there? So what we do is, it depends on whether you like to go through diary or jobs. I quite like jobs. So we just click it to open it, and that gives us an overview of the job itself. So here we can view things like the job notes, and we can add a job note as well, and add that. And we can still see any of the other job notes. We can also see any documents that have been uploaded to the job, and that's those attachments that were shown in the portal. We can also view information regarding the location, and that is tied to the client's location that was selected for the job. So you can have separate notes just for that. Say if there's a particularly tricky door or an access method that your staff need to know about, you can use that to let them know that. And there's also client notes, and these are specific to the client. They also include the notes for the locations, just to make them a little bit easier to get to. And those can be things like, whether they prefer a week's notice, or just little things about your clients that you know that are handy to pass on to your staff. And they're also available in the portal in the client page. So that information is always at hand whenever you're communicating with your clients. So when you're looking at a job, you can also have a look at the location. So here you've got a nice, easy view of exactly where you need to go. And you can get directions directly from Google, which is really handy if you're as directionally challenged as me. So another cool thing on Scheduler is you have the map option. And again, if you're directionally challenged as I am, you can view the routes that your staff are taking to get to their jobs, and sort of optimize them a little bit. So this is the route that my user would be taking. This is Alan. And then if we select Catherine, it'll show hers as well. And if you're looking for a more automated way to do it, we do have the route optimization add-on, which lets you click a button and it'll suggest the best travel method for the jobs that are on the scheduler at that time, which is really, really handy, especially with fuel costs being what they are right now. Okay, so going back to the app, you're looking at the job sheet. This is all of the information that we need to know. Okay, we're ready to go and do the job. So firstly, we want to let the office know that we're on the way. So we'll hit the on route. So this means that we're traveling at the moment. We can pause travel if we need to stop for any reason, and add a reason if we need to. Say I ran out of fuel, and that will let us resume whenever we need to. We can also mark ourselves as arrived. We can mark ourselves as late, and that will let you call or SMS the client that is selected for that job. And we can also cancel routing. And that just gives the people back at the office who are sort of trying to keep on top of the day, some indication as to where you are, what you're up to, and whether you might need help, or if you've got room for more jobs or any of that sort of stuff. The other thing that we can do while we're in the jobs list is we can communicate with the clients directly. So we've got the call, SMS, and email options here. And just tapping those, so if I hit email, it will automatically populate the email in there. If I had templates set up, it would put one of those into there as well, but I can just type a nice little message and that will send it to my client. Maybe I want them to know that I'm running a bit early. Is it okay if I come over sooner? And same with SMS and calling. So they're nice and handy there. It's really easy to get to them. In the diary, and we click to open the jobs. We've got the option to open it, which I can't because that job's not assigned to me. It's actually assigned to Alan. There isn't the ability to open anyone else's jobs that aren't assigned to you because they aren't your jobs to complete. So if you need to complete a job, it needs to be reassigned to yourself. So now we can open these ones. And this starts the job. It brings us back to this page where we can set the routing. Or we can add an invoice or a quote. So if I want to add an invoice, just fill out some information in here, an invoice note if I need to, any line items, and this adds it directly to the job without having to go through the invoicing system itself. We just save that, and that's created our invoice here. Okay, so what happens when we want to actually start the job? So we've got the Start Job button down here, and now we've started the job. What will happen when you start a job is it gives you the option to, well, it doesn't give you the option, well, if you've got a web form attached, it'll give the option to email that web form. So if we've got one attached, okay. So we want to send this to our client, and they can send it back to us. So you just hit send, and that will go out, and that will be that web form completed. It'll also give us our job forms. So the safety form will come first, followed by the job forms. If you've got the safety first rule set so that the safety first job needs to be form needs to be completed first, the job form will not be able to be started until this has been submitted. And that's really important. Otherwise, there's not much point having that rule in there. But yeah, they won't be accessible until that safety form is complete, if you've got that setting enabled. Because there's a whole lot of status changes that you can see from the portal, which are really, really useful. Especially if you just want an overview of where your jobs are at. So you can see on the scheduler at the moment, any job that's overdue is actually red. And that just means they're overdue, but they haven't been completed. The ones that are in green are either the end time hasn't come yet, or they're not even due to be started. So if we want to find the job, let's search for Marie. Okay. So we've got her job here. This one is this one here. So we'll start the job. And now that it's started, we'll just refresh over this side. And it's now gone yellow. And that indicates to you that your technician has started that job. So you can see really easily at a glance which jobs have been started and which ones are still yet to be done. So in theory, we email the web form. We need to complete the job safety form. So all we need to do is tap that. And okay, is the job site safe to carry out work? We'll say yes. And then we complete that. And that is the job safety form completed. So we're free to move on to the job form. And if we go back to the portal, just refresh it. We can also see from this, if we open the edit form, and this is the same if you open the job to edit in any other place as well. We can see that the job safety form is in progress. It's still processing. The job form hasn't been started and the client agreement form hasn't been returned yet. So that's really useful. There's another way you can view this as well. So yeah, we've got that in progress. So we know that that one's been started. Over here, again, when we hover over it, we see that status in progress. Once a form is in progress, it is also given a submitted form ID. And that is where you can go and edit it later on. We do not recommend editing a form while it's in progress on the app because it can result in lost data if the versions don't match. So if the person in the field is still working on it, but you make changes to it back in the office, that typically doesn't work out very well because the system doesn't know which version of the information is the most correct. And it sort of has to guess based on which is newer. And the newer version may not contain information that was added whilst it was being filled out in the field. It can get a bit tricky resolving those issues. So as a rule, we don't recommend accessing forms that are in progress until the job is complete. And all of these forms will be marked as complete once the job is completed. So we've completed the job safety form, that's fine. Alrighty, so say we need something else, we can't complete the job at this moment, we just want to pause, we can hit the pause job. Maybe it's break time. Okay, we're going to get some vanilla slice. And then we can resume the job whenever we need to go back to it. And that pause button comes back for us to use again. If we need to put the job on hold and add more to it another day, instead of pausing it, we can hit the save button. So that will throw us back to the jobs page where we can go back and do all of these bits of management. And that basically just puts the job in a state of not complete, but still started until you go back into it. So we'll go back to the job. And as you can see, our job safety form is still complete because we've already done that part of the job. If we want to complete the job, we can go in here. Okay, yep, so the client's there, work carried out, has it been completed? Yes, we completed that job. We did a very good job. And now all of our forms are done. So the job is now ready to complete from the app. And all we need to do for that is to hit complete here. And that will upload any forms that need to be uploaded, and it'll give you the option to exit it if you don't want it to complete and upload those forms. But otherwise, we just wait for the sync to complete. And it will let you know that it's successful. So once that comes up, that means that your forms have been successfully submitted and the job's complete. And if we go back to here, you'll see that the job is no longer on my list here because it's been completed. The jobs menu will hide any jobs that are complete, so it only shows you what's active. And that's really, really good for just keeping on top of your day. Whereas on the diary menu, you still have access to all of the jobs that you've got on your list. It'll just have this little grey dot to let you know that this job's completed. And when you open it up, you won't be able to open it or edit it anymore because it's finalized. When we go back to the portal, we'll just refresh. And you can see that it's gone grey now. And that indicates to me as a portal user that the person in the field has completed that job. The forms are ready to be dealt with if they need to be, or if there's something else that I need to do to finalize this job. And if we edit it, we can also see that these have gone green. So they have been submitted now and they're ready to go. We can also see that same thing here. Submitted. This one we didn't put through. And we can see that this is submitted form ID. So when there's a form attached to a job, we also don't recommend going and editing anything in here after the job has been started. So if you see that there is a number here in the submitted form ID, it's no longer useful to make any edits through here. So instead, we would copy that, because that's our ID, and we can look at the forms in submitted forms. And we've only got the one submitted form, but we can also search. And then we can open that, and there's our form there. And this is a safe way to make edits after the job has been completed. Because we've got that indication that the job is complete, the form has been submitted, it's no longer being worked on, and we can make the changes here. And this will track all of the changes, and if there are issues, it's much easier to go back and find versions and resolve them. So job forms are not submitted until the job is complete. And we saw that before where they said that they were in progress, even though that we knew the job safety form had actually been started and it had been completed. They all get uploaded at once when the job submission goes through. With the portal, it's a little bit different. So when you're completing jobs on the portal as an administrative user, you do not need to have the forms completed in any state to do that. There is no requirement for it. So to do that, you just click it and then hit complete, and that will mark the job as complete. And any communications that are triggered on that, or things that are triggered by the due date, the completion date, they will all be scheduled at that point. So yeah, if there's been issues or your technician can't submit a job, but there's no attached forms or anything like that, you can just very easily just complete them off like that. So after the job, we went through a little bit on how to find job forms, and I'll show you a few other ways. So we might also say it's a bit harder and we've got a much longer list of submitted forms. We might also want to have a look at the activity section of the client page. So not only do we have jobs here, but because the form that we used had a CRM select element on it, we can also view them here. So that shows the job safety form and also the job form, because these were attached to a job in which this client was used. And that's a really good way to keep track of sort of what documents you've got for what client and how to sort of track what belongs where. We can also view any recurring profiles. So we don't have any for Marie yet. I do have one for Aiden, and it is, if I flick to the next day, so you can see that these jobs, in fact, I'll go to month view. You can see that these have been added to my scheduler. If we go forward, they've all repeated and added themselves on that sort of daily basis. And if you look at, we'll go back to this week. Okay, so recurring jobs will have a little icon down the bottom there, which is useful, and you'll be learning things about Formitize every single day that you're using it. There's so much that's built into it that is quite incredible. I've been using it for nearly 5 years, and I'm learning things every day, even working so closely with it. So when you're looking at a job that's part of a recurring profile, you'll get the recurring profile ID number, which you can use to edit it. And this is the template that we were looking at before. It'll also show you any jobs that are created. So you can manage the jobs that are created by a profile by going to that jobs created page. So this one is set to repeat every single day, skipping Saturdays and Sundays for 20 days, I think. Again, we can view that there's a list of jobs that have been created here, and we can modify those as we need. It's a really useful way to create things that say you're doing a monthly service somewhere, or just your really regular services that you just want to have show on your scheduler as a placeholder, so you can book work in and around them. You can turn them into proper jobs as you need them, or they can turn themselves into proper jobs based on the rules that you define. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to show you was invoices and payments. So if we go into invoices, we can see that there's one here because we completed this job. We can edit it if we need to, save and send it. But we can also do this from the app. So that is for Aiden. Okay, so when we add an invoice, we'll make the status open, select a line item, add an amount. So you might have these already set up. There we go. Save that invoice. And what we can do is we can actually take payment directly from the app if you've got it set up to do so. And then we can add the payment and send a payment email directly to the client once that's gone through. We can also do that from the diary. By opening the invoice. And then we can take a payment here. So you got a lot of different options and different ways to do the same thing. It really depends on what you're most comfortable with. And another of the things that I found really useful in an office was the ability to view what had happened on a job as it happened. So we've had this one where we marked it as en route, we marked it as started, we marked it as complete. We can actually view all of that here. So here we can see the job was created. I started the form, then I took a break. Then I resumed the form, and I did a few other things, and then I paused for some vanilla slice. You can see the reasons there. And then I resumed again, and then I submitted both forms when the job was closed. So that's here you can see how the forms both submitted at the same time that the job was completed, and everything's all sort of nicely wrapped up in this little history thing. And you can also see any other changes that have been made to the job along the way. So if it was rescheduled, if it was the client was changed, if forms were added, all of that sort of stuff appears in here. So there's a lot to take in. And there are so many more things that I could have gone into. This and to learn a bit more about the jobs module and how it works with the app and the portal. It's been really awesome to finally be able to show people these tips and tricks that I found so useful. And if you need any help, you can rewatch the webinar recording. You can check out the user guide, which I will quickly show you where that is. If you're not familiar, on the side here, you've got the Smart Guide Center. And also on any page, you've got this little circle icon with a question mark. And that gives you access to things like the user guide, the getting started guide, the updates, system status, support tickets, professional services, and other useful things. So you can raise a ticket just using this button here, fill out a few details and send that through. Or we've got the user guide here, and that's got a whole lot of answers in there for the questions that we get asked the most. And 9 times out of 10, if a question's being asked, it is in the user guide. So thank you again for joining us. It's been really wonderful having you here, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Have a wonderful rest of